days you work, one whole day to play. Come on, everybody, wear your roller skates today. It's Saturday, 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 it's Saturday, Saturday, it's Saturday, Saturday, it's Saturday,
Saturday with Renee.
All right, welcome everybody to Black Liberation Media and episode 146, uninterrupted editions of Saturdays with Renee, featuring Renee Johnston. I'm Jared Ball, happy to be your co-host. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the things. And Renee, how you feeling today?
Bruh. I feel like every week I start feeling that with that same answer. There's always something. It's never like just easy breezy, whatevs. It's just not possible. But look, consecutive for 146 weeks is pretty. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I don't know how many. Yeah. I don't know how many people can say that. And it's like the most random thing that we started doing ever.
Yeah, and maybe that's why it's been this successful. Everything else I've planned crashes and burns, so you know it works out. But folks who are joining us, please do put this in your socials. Find ways that however you would like to support the platform. The Patreon QR code is in the corner as well. Sign up even for free because you just never know. Always good to have a backup. And I'm looking forward to the show today. You have me watching, at least some children's cartoons so I can figure out what some of the starting point was. Hopefully we'll get Renee back here in a second. And then whenever we can just bring at least one of our guests up. And I see. Okay. And get started. I don't know. So all right, so let's just do that, and when Renee can rejoin with sound, we'll make that happen. But for the time being, let's go ahead and bring Samantha Youssef back to the platform. Samantha, it's always good to see you. Welcome back. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm looking forward to it. And I know that most folks by now will be familiar with who you are, but just if you want to just say a quick word about who you are, and then I'm very much interested to see where we're going. I tried to do a little bit of homework, but yeah. So anyway, but yeah, just say a word or two about yourself, and then we'll get going.
I really need to sit and write a bio, because on Millennials they're using which I sent to Jared, the other Jared, my professional bio, but I don't have a current Samantha bio. But really quickly, I'm Ukrainian and Palestinian. I worked in Hollywood for little over a couple decades, working in this as a artistic overseer, I guess, of starting off at Disney and then, eventually expanding into the VFX area. And I don't know, I guess I'll just stop there. I don't know. And I finished my graduate studies, and I'm working on my PhD right now in sort of film propaganda and co-optation.
All right, right on. And right on time. We're also being joined by freeing himself. Were you breaking free of something? Like, this is my bad. I mean,
Nah.
But Dre, yeah, welcome. And while we're doing the introductions, go ahead and say a word about who you are and welcome to the platform.
Well, I'm Dre with without us, usually in the chat, blocking people randomly. I am a part of Bat Midwest. I also haven't in a while, but like compete like fighting as far as like mixed martial arts and Muay Thai. So like I lived in Thailand for like several years doing that. And then also just like here to talk shit about movies I don't like because like I'm a cinephile and really like to read as well. So yeah, so I've been the past couple weeks like looking up Thomas Pynchon and then realizing how odd Paul Thomas Anderson is as a person, and it's been very interesting. So
yeah, that's interesting. How would you all like to proceed?
Am I back?
Yeah.
Am I back now? Whew.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. This is why me and the travel and the show and it always sounds like a good idea until the bars start disappearing, and then and then everybody starts sounding like they're in a tin can. So Dre was talking, and all I can hear is because that's literally how it comes across with this signal. So good, brutal. So I don't know. I will just because on the thumbnail you had Russian, and I don't know. I don't know.
I was so confused when I saw that. I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, it's because it was kind of random, but it wasn't really random because it actually does fit into part of what I always like. Yeah, it's the propaganda piece that I always like to talk about, especially when we're graced with Sam.
Well, somewhere in the email exchange, there was a discussion of Masha and the Bear.
Yeah, Masha and the Bear. Yeah.
Yes,
and I had not heard about it. So
I had not either, and I'm not like I'm going to be a fly wall for that part and chip in.
Well, I mean, I just
watched a little bit.
I just watched a little bit and then read, some of the criticism and the discussion about it, and then just use Google Translate. So it just says, we're not Russian propaganda because that's what they're being accused of as a cartoon.
Soviet propaganda, actually, like Soviet. They say.
Well, the British press started just with Russia, so they did, before they got to anything about the Red Scare stuff, which of course is, and I don't think for a lot of their audiences, they're concerned with the particular differences between the Soviet Union and Russia. To them, I think it's all one big mass of bad redness. So that's where I didn't know anything about it. So Masha and the Bear is a Netflix cartoon that I didn't know you can just easily get on Netflix. It's in the kids section. It's a cartoon. I watched one, I guess, episode, and it's as good or bad as I think anything that I ever watched with my kids, or that I certainly saw growing up as a kid. And then I thought, yeah, it is soft power propaganda for Russia and or the Soviet Union, but so what? And the real issue is, of course, the Brits and the West want exclusive rights to propagandize their own audiences. So as I know we're all gonna, and to suggest that what they do, that is the West does, is just innocent cartoons, and then here comes the big bad communists, with their propaganda, is nonsense. That said, I was like, yeah, I mean, it's the Bear, obviously, the Soviet Bear. Yeah. Then if you look at it, I stopped it a couple times, look in the background, and it's got something about the Moscow Circus. It's got other relatively. So it's not like in the one episode I watched, there was nothing that I could even pick up on that was even looking to be like, hey, here's a bowl of cereal. You support this, the communism. It was nothing like that, but it was just like everything else that you would expect coming from this country, like American flags, But go ahead. That's at least what I saw. But go ahead.
That
Yeah,
the
go
bowl
ahead.
of cereal is not like an American brand of bowl of cereal. This is the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
I mean,
and yeah, exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
What's funny with that is that fucking, I don't know who, I didn't look up the company that bought it, but Angel Studios is basically a right-wing propaganda Christo-fascist company that like has a bunch of media out, right? So they bought up the intellectual property to do what the fuck is it called? Animal Farm, right? What's funny is like Animal Farm, obviously George Orwell, and where he was like talking down on communism, but they're using Animal Farm to do the same thing, but not with the same politics as George Orwell. Like George Orwell fought in the Spanish Civil War. Like that's why he has a problem with communism, because he was with the anarchists, and when the corporate communists were like, nah, but we wanna just do what the Spaniards was already doing. He like, nah, don't do that. So he always had like an ideological beef with communism, not hating communism in and of itself. But Angel Studios buys Animal Farm, and they're like, wait a minute, communism hate? Yeah, we're gonna run this to the ground, especially with some Jesus on it. So that Masha and the Bear shit is funny that they want to argue is propaganda, like Paw Patrol is propaganda.
I was going to say, why are we not talking about like things like Paw Patrol? That's basically full-on propaganda run by like an Elon Musk type kid directing all of these state paratrooper animals.
Exactly.
But that's the reason I wanted us to talk about it a little bit, is because this general idea that there would be an entire commission of a government that comes together to complain about an animated series that's been on for like, I think it's been running for like 15 years or something. Like it's been running for a really long time. And they've just noticed, right, that this is problematic. So now they're all on top of like, oh, we got to do something about this. And it just made me laugh because I also thought of Paw Patrol. And I was like, oh, okay. But the funniest thing about this series is it is the baseline theory of you have this big bear who you think would be rough and all these things, and the bear is just trying to take care of this little girl who's an absolute pain in the ass, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about the idea of Russia or USSR or any of these communist countries as a place, and here comes the US and the UK, and they're just annoying, and all they do is create havoc and cause problems. And I was like, oh well, yeah, this fits completely, this totally fits. And I just thought it was hysterical that is how they pulled this all together, and that they're complaining about it. And it wasn't so much really about like the actual show itself. I also only watched like 2 episodes because I just wanted to make sure I had a baseline understanding of what it was about. It is more this idea that this is the problem. This animated series with the ex-Russian bear and the little girl, this is the problem with everything. Not the wars, not the genocides, not the apartheid, not the occupation. Like none of that's the problem. It's the animated series. That's the problem.
I mean, Donald Trump called himself. He said he would be the best communist if he was a communist. He's like, he said that out of his mouth because I just hate people so much. Like, but so when it comes to that Masha and the Bear shit. Like even overall overarching propaganda, it's even a thing of like misinterpreting or misrepresenting things. So with Masha the Bear, with Animal Farm, now kind of like subverting what the fuck George Orwell was talking about. Even with that terrible ass One Battle After Another, that was an adaptation of Vineland from Thomas Pynchon, who Thomas Pynchon in and of itself, he worked for he was a part of the Navy. Then he was the technical writer for Boeing, and he was actually a part of the Minuteman program. Was writing for that. And if you don't know what the Minuteman program is, that's a program where the U.S. at the time, they probably got more now. They have 400 nuclear warheads, like domestically. And he would write, he would also write in the magazines about like jokingly, like, hey, we might want to like put a cap on that before we end up with like Mad Hatter's disease or some shit like that. But once he got out of the military and away from Boeing, he became again an author, and his books have like huge gaps in between. So he has Gravity's Rainbow or whatever that was about like basically nuclear warheads and shit, and it had to do with the nuclear warheads having them being shot off has something to do with an erection. It's odd as shit. Then he was gone for 17 years, and he comes out with Vineland, which Vineland, to Dr. Jab's joy, it's about post-radical America, and during and seeing like the badness of like what was allowed because the government stepped in during the Reagan era. So he's talking shit about Reagan in the book because he didn't like Reagan, and as we know, Reagan died on your wedding day. But in that book, and in comparison to that movie, Paul Thomas Anderson said that the movie, he made it for his kids and his family, and the book and the movie have, which is weird, a lot of the people who love the book say that the book and the movie have something to do with each other, but after like watching shit on the book and like reading a little bit about the book, they don't really have much to do with each other. The only thing that the things that Paul Thomas Anderson did was he made Leo's character more prominent. Actually, fucking Tiana Taylor's character should have been more prominent. She was a part of the Fascist Pig Film Collective, and from that, they were picked up by the 24 FPS, and they were just making like, they were a film collective group that would do documentaries and movies about the fascist government they lived under in America and about police brutality and all that. And they were doing all that on a college campus. And she was, from her doing that, she ended up, the Tiana Taylor character ended up getting caught up with the Sean Penn character because he gave off like a masculine kind of strong authoritarian kind of shit. She finds out that he is a government agent, but she's already too late. They have sex or whatever like that. She goes into hiding and becomes a snitch. But her being a snitch, she was the only activist. The character that Leo played wasn't an activist. He was just a hippie that would fake his injuries so he can get a fucking a check from the government. But he wasn't an activist. So from there in the book, she's underground she tries to get away from the Sean Penn character. She eventually does, and then ends up marrying another secret agent. Her daughter is like mad because she don't really know about her. Her daughter ends up like in the movie, she ends up being hidden by fucking nuns, but in the book she's hidden by ninjas because again, Thomas Pynchon was a wild dude. He smoked a lot of weed, so she was being hidden by ninjas. And nearing the end of the book, they try to, as he's chasing the woman he thinks is his daughter down Prairie, which is a girl that's supposed to be his daughter, but she's not. She's only Tiana Taylor's daughter. The government pulls the funding so he can't go after her anymore. Then he gets his own helicopter, tries to chase her down still, ends up crashing, and they're in a fictional Vineland, which is in Northern California. And when he dies, the Yurok people, who are a real indigenous group, nation of people, they take his body to the land of the dead by the Thanosian people, which is Thanos means like bringer of the dead. So if you didn't know that, I found that out like 2 days ago. Like Thanos from Marvel, the same shit in that book. It means bring up the dead. So they take his ass to the dead. Leo's character, he ends up with his daughter. He's cool. Tiana Taylor's character stays with the other cop guy, and then the story kind of ends. But it's basically anti-government. Like, it's big anti-government, and the villain dies. But in the fucking movie that Paul Thomas Anderson made, he basically just made an ebony porno. He made an ebony hate porn. Like,
I'm trying to figure out if the book is better or worse than the movie.
It's wild. It's a wild book. Because Thomas Pynchon is an encyclopedic writer, so he writes with a bunch of words. He has a bunch of prosing. He has a lot of characters in his book. And he's interesting to a lot of his fandom, so much so that there's a documentary on people trying to find him because he only has like 3 to 4 pictures out, period. Like, no one really knows what he looks like. The only public display he has ever done was funny enough on The Simpsons. There's a Simpsons episode that Thomas Pynchon is on. He's the character that he's wearing a paper bag over his face with a question mark on it. He voices the character, but you never see him. And it's so bad how much people are trying to find him that CNN did a story about him when they were chronicling one of his books. And rather than talking about the fucking book, people in the story are trying to figure out who Thomas is, because they're showing a video of people like walking by, and they're talking about his book, talking about Thomas a little bit. And as the story ends, the news anchor is like, yeah, we didn't want to tell you guys, but one of those people that was walking in that video was Thomas Pynchon. But there's like a whole 2-hour documentary on trying to figure out where he is. Allegedly, he's supposed to be somewhere in New York City, because there's a picture of him going to vote, which is possibly a picture of him. But there's people that have been stalking him since he's written these books.
But the books, we cannot confirm if the books are good or not.
Nah, they're just wild. They're just wild books. They're just wild books. Because to say that Vineland, from what I looked up, is as good as the movie. I mean, the movie is as good as the book. I don't see it, but then there's people that like Sinners and shit and like Boosters, so I can't call it.
That was such a wild ride. I honestly don't even know what to do with that.
Yeah.
But someone in the chat said that's next level hate to read the book about the movie to determine that the book is also terrible. And so I'm gonna have to give you kudos on that one. Good job. Yeah. Good job. So Boosters, right, was a song, right? One Battle is a book, right?
Yeah.
Is Sinners based on anything? Do we know?
No. Not that I know of. I think that was supposed to be an original story from the mind of Ryan Coogler, the FBA. And he said it out his mouth. He said it on Democracy Now! He said he's a foundational Black American. So I'm just saying what he said.
And we try to avoid giving too much credit, right? So Samantha, you talked about this before, that we should always be cautious with like really making these like determinations that when people say they wrote something that they actually wrote it. And we should always question like who's really behind the things that people are laying claim to.
Well, I know he claimed part of it was that this was inspired in part by his personal story, but of course this is also historically what we know was the claim of famously or infamously of wow, I just went blank. Alex Haley in Roots.
Oh, I hate him.
That's what he was going to say.
And that was an equally fraudulent claim as it would turn out to be as well, and something that he allegedly took from forgot her name, but a Black woman's novel at one point. But so you know that it makes a nice marketable tale. You know, even if true, it's part of the marketing for Coogler to self-define as FBA and then say that Sinners is in part inspired by his own family's story. Yeah.
I mean, because again, as a well fucking versed hater, I'd seen a lot of shit from Ryan Coogler that I didn't need to see. So he, in the interview for Sinners, the lady was talking to him. It wasn't the same girl that was trying to like talk to him about socialism and communism, and he was like, "I'm from California." It wasn't that girl. It was another lady that was talking to him and Michael B. Jordan about Sinners, and he was like, "Yeah, you know me as like a foundational, Black American," and he was like asking her like, "You know what that is?" Like, so he's like trying to pump that really hard. But people also forget that he has an interview that he did for when he was doing Black Panther the first time, when he figured out that people in Africa also do the same things that people in America do. He was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know that y'all hang outside and like pass around alcohol and talk amongst yourselves." Like, he is a dickhead. But he is a part of the grander problem, the Paul Thomas Andersons of it all. Because Paul Thomas Anderson, some people say that book is like the movie, which I don't see, but he's said to have said that the movie in and of itself is not a political statement, but then he's accepting, I think, a BAFTA award or maybe the Oscar. And he was like, yeah, we left a lot for the kids to clean up. Like, hopefully this movie can help. So, like, is it Uchi Wally Wally or is it one mic? Like, do you actually think that this movie is a
black girl
statement?
lost a shorty owe you for ice?
Right.
No,
do you actually think that this movie is a political statement or not? And he clearly, from what it seems with him and Maya Rudolph, it is just like Ebony hate porn. Like, it's not political at all. Because again, Thomas Pynchon, he in and of itself is a very interesting person. His books all over the place, but like his life from being in the Navy to being a part of being a technical writer for Boeing to being a part of a nuclear program to then being anti-nuclear weapons, anti-government, and all of that. None of that was expressed in One Battle After Another. If anything, the first 5 minutes maybe, and then after that it was just lampooning and Tiana Taylor shooting a gun. Like, it didn't make any goddamn sense.
Since you mentioned FBA, can I show you something real quick that I think that Samantha, I think will be a nice softball pitch for you to hit a home run and begin whatever your next contribution to the conversation will be. But you mentioned FBA, and one of the channels that I watch is this dude, the Birdman 15, who is a brother from LA who does voiceover work apparently in the industry, but has a pretty popular YouTube channel that I've mostly watched for his I think comical and interesting but very liberal criticism of mainstream media. And then he's often been in these beefs with some very right-wing content creators who are constantly complaining about the wokeness of Hollywood and how wokeness and, go woke, go broke, and that whole claim and all of this, very white supremacist stuff. And vis-a-vis them, Birdman comes across as very progressive and advanced in thought. But one day I'm watching his channel and he made a passing reference to him proudly being FBA. And rarely, I rarely don't engage, but I did jump in the comment real quick and just said, bro, like, that's a very conservative, I don't know if you know anything about this, but it's a very conservative thing. I don't get that you have those politics. So I'm just kind of, because I gather that there is some of that out there, that there is an understandable Black American. I want to be proud in my Black American specific heritage, which I'm not mad at as a starting point. But but then because it's not politicized appropriately, it gets stuck in ultimately the conservative morass that it's originally, that its foundation, pun intended, is itself in. So I just said, and then he responded, which is, I thought, rare, because it's a pretty big channel. And then and his response was, basically, he was more or less polite, but it was like, I don't give a fuck what you're saying. And then he went back. We had another round, and then he did ask. He was like, well, who are you? Are you Black American? And I said, and I made a joke about at least half. And I put, but we qualify, according to their stand, whatever, little joke like that. And then he didn't respond anymore, which I took as, admittedly, you don't qualify for the conversation, so I'm just going to move on. That's how I took it. I don't know if he meant it that way. I don't know. It's a big channel. He could have just forgotten and just moved on. But but the point that I know I was trying to get at was this that if we had continued the conversation and really would have eventually gotten to, look, your criticisms are great, but there is another level to it. And then I would have invited him to what we do around here and this kind of thing like that. So I'm watching, he's been in this pre-beef with these right-wing content creators around the film Odyssey, which I've not seen, that has just come out. And because they cast Lupita as Helen of Troy, everybody in the white nationalist community is crashing out over this dark-skinned woman playing a Greek historical figure. And it's kind of like the Masha and the Bear type of thing. It's like, you know, how dare you inaccurately cast someone, you know, when historically we're used to being the ones that are miscast as the white folks taking credit for everything, and everything is white. And how dare you put anybody of any form of color in this supposedly Greek. All right. I'm about to land. Forgive me. This is taking longer than I thought. In his video, he's talking about the fact that Tom Holland is in the video, and he makes this reference that you're going to hear him come back to in this little bit I'm going to play in a second, where he's saying, I'm used to seeing Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and yet in this film, he apparently gives a much more mature performance that we appreciate, and that he appreciates, and that is Birdman. But then he says what I'm going to play here. And I think, Sam, you will, because I heard what should be, if Birdman and I kept talking, would have been led him to an elevated position, you know, with your analysis informing it. So I'm just going to play this very quick segment from this video. And then I think you'll hear immediately what the point is.
Real. Poseidon is real. It is myth in all its glory. The reason we love telling these stories that ultimately gave birth to the spandex wearing superhero. Now, I don't think this is
all right. So that was all I wanted to play, in part because while Birdman was resistant to the eventual conversation that I wanted us to get to, which is there's a deeper level of ideology, or there's a deeper meaning and more ideology and politics and all this popular stuff than you wanting to give credit for. And that's why you should be more careful around the narratives around FBA and et cetera, and even in the films that you criticize. But while you're giving this glorious review of this film that you ultimately want to defend for having Lupita in, and Dre, I'm just gonna mute your mic real quick. It's just the and you know, while you're praising this film, you point out to something that with an elevated level of political consciousness or radicalized political education might be meaningful. That yes, the fantasy and mythology ideologically that Homer, to the extent we know who he was, and the Greek world has infused its own myths, which themselves become part of a grander Western tradition. That ideology does end up in Spider-Man. It does end up in whatever popular Marvel or Disney or they're all the same now product that we do get. So without being critical of it, and including the liberal aspects of it, we miss many things. So I've been talking way too long. I'm going to stop there and let you, but I think you see what I was trying to, anyway, go ahead. Please respond. Renee, anyone respond.
I'm a little confused.
Okay, good.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly how you want me to respond, but I do agree that obviously, you know, we, especially in the Marvel scape and in the contemporary, like popular culture, Hollywood scape, like we're constantly drawing upon Greek or Roman mythology and Norse mythology. It's foundational, like it's what we learn in school in the West, even, like, you know, and so I do, like, you know, I don't think that's, I mean, it's, and
so that was it.
Yeah, like comic book like heroes and superheroes have become the new versions of the Greek gods in their era or whatever. Like they've become these that, like, they sort of represent, I think, similar kind of demigod or eugenically superior kind of statuses and stuff. And I think in terms of like the racialization in the casting, like it is like the whole thing I haven't seen the film. The whole thing is just pretty hilarious to me though, because it's like, I think also the racial lens is constantly coming from the US. So unless you have like West African descended Black casting or like British descended white American casting, like that's considered, these films then suddenly get heralded as like being diverse, or like we get into these kind of conversations, but of course they have nothing to do with like the people of how the people of that region identified themselves. And I think, I mean, but it is a West Asia, North Africa region, so that you are going to have like, it's just that I do find that the whole conversation is hilarious because you've got someone like Tom Holland, and I forget who's the,
and Matt Damon. You got Matt Damon,
like, who's the older guy?
an Irish boy
like,
playing.
What are these people doing over there? Like that's like, so the whole thing, I feel like, and it's this invisibling, and I'll just tie this back a little bit, sorry, because there was just my brain is still processing.
No, I didn't do a good job. So
many films in the last.
I didn't do a good job of. I was crafting something in real time, so I didn't do a good job of setting up the question. But really, what I was wanting to get to is what I know you talk a lot about, which that there are ideological underpinnings to these popular art forms that often go uncritically examined. Especially when, as I'm saying about Birdman, he's starting with an easy criticism coming from white nationalists saying, why are you casting this dark-skinned woman as Helen of Troy? So he's easy to knock that out. Mark Lamont Hill goes on Piers Morgan and does this whole thing, and it comes off as a very progressive analysis. But then, as even those of us who self-define as at least starting from the progressive left, at the bare minimum, can somehow come back and get caught up in liking things like American Fiction and Andor, then we need ourselves to be dragged out of, because it's easy to say, the regular Star Wars films are just boring and they don't da-da-da-da. Then Andor does a little something and catches somebody like me. And it's like, so it's because it's easy to get, if the criticism is some hardcore white nationalism, it's easy. But when they get a little more sophisticated in a liberal presentation or progressive presentation of the same thing, it does require a more expert level of analysis to be. And that's sort of what I'm saying about Birdman. Like he's saying, yeah, what's the problem having Lupita in there? And this is this great, wonderful thing that, as he's even acknowledging, is the foundation for Spider-Man, without acknowledging the very Eurocentric, Western, capitalist, liberal. So even going back to where we started with Masha and the Bear, it's like, it's easy to say, well, that's Russian propaganda, and not turn around and say the Paw Patrol is US propaganda, or Spy Kids is intelligence agency propaganda. It's like, it's so that's all so really I was asking you about the liberal presentation of very right-wing, conservative, white nationalist, Eurocentric ideologies, and how your work is invaluable in helping even those of us who claim a certain left politics to see and then drag ourselves out. In other words, I was reaching out to save Birdman in the way you reached out, and Mtume reached out to save me when I was drowning in my own representation. So that's it. So anyway, so all that to say whatever you would like to say, and then we can go wherever you all want to go.
No, I mean, without having seen, obviously, like the references that you're pulling from, it just seems to me like, again, first of all, these white nationalists that are being, racist or get angry that anybody that's not like their idea of what white is present in these films that they identify with, because again, Greek history is constantly pulled, even more specifically, like Roman Empire in terms of America and stuff. So, obviously from their lens, like their racist lens, they are specifically targeting Black people, Black Americans. And so that is what's going to get them angry. But then to start the analysis from their lens of what racism is as well, because their lens includes the genocide of the rest of the world. And so then, and this is where it gets like from outside of America, I feel like the conversation is a bit easier, but talking when I see the discourses inside America, everything does get centered around this conversation because, you know, it is a prominent, it is sort of the major defining racial conversation in the US. And then, but then that lens gets projected on every interpretation. So, you know, and that's something to be considered, because there's nobody in that Odyssey film that actually looks like they're from the region, you know, you know, and so I think, you know, there is that kind of these identity politics and these racialized politics that come from the US lens are also being projected from both sides, I think, when it comes to this analysis. Like it's like because the whole casting is sort of the like trying to create like an image of what diversity in America is considered acceptable in the progressive liberal space or whatever is what they are putting on this film. It's not diversity from the region that these stories came from. So I think there's, you know, there is that that's kind of where, like, you know, my stance would be. Like, I think it's, you know, it's like, and it is ridiculous. Like, it is ridiculous that you have like these Irish and British, like, you know, like Scandinavian looking people, like, and then a West African descended, like, woman being criticized for being there, but all of them are not from that region. It's sort of the point that I'm trying to make.
Look, if she can be the face of De Beers Diamonds, why can't she be the face of Western Empire?
But
yeah.
but also like, so one of my big arguments when the live action Little Mermaid came out, right, was all these people like so mad because the Little Mermaid was black, and I had to remind people she's a mermaid, right? Like, the mermaids aren't real. These are all like fictional characters, and it actually doesn't matter what color the child is because this is a fictional thing. And so one of my questions is, there's also a real presumption here about the actual historical truth of this story in general, right? Like, when we look at all of these stories about the Roman Empire and ancient Greece, and like, these are all stories that were told by the people who claim to be the winners of whatever tale they're telling, right? So if you read history books now, they're going to tell you that like slavery wasn't so bad and people just came here to work and they were okay working for free. That's actually not correct historically. That's the book you're reading. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there's also this real presumption that I find truly problematic about the actual like factual relevance of these stories and these storylines and how they present these stories. And Sam's right. Like, none of these people come from that region. So the idea that any of them represent who would have been there is nonsense.
Yes, because then they're just literally going by like melanin levels. But like North Africans, like, you know, like are physiologically a little bit different because we all adapt to the regions that we've been, you know, living in to a certain extent. So it doesn't, it's not like, I think that's, you know, like the whole thing is kind of just cast in like, to me, it's just cast in an American lens. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is that the positioning, the strategic positioning, like, she's cast as Helen of Troy. Like, these people, like, this is a character that was just an object in this whole thing. She was like a prize. We're not talking about a decision-making character. We're not talking about, and so to strategically be casting a Black actress into that role and not like be like I think we also have to look at like what are, because, you know, like what you said with Little Mermaid, or like there's certain roles that are permissible in a way. And so I think that's also something that like, sorry, because I'm just thinking from the side of when we're creating things, like when we're having these conversations of like, how do we cast or how do we create these characters? And so I think that like these are, yeah, sorry. I don't know if
so part of it for me is, and I slightly disagree with a little bit of what you said there, Samantha, that in the phrasing of, it's not phenotypic adjustments over time, adapting, I think was the word you used, to the conditions. This would have been adaptations forced on a population through invasions, through you know, that quote unquote de-Africanized the population, forced darker skinned Africans, sub-Sahara, and all of that other kind of stuff. But there's also this history that I think is confused of the time. And this is not, I'm not an expert on this. I didn't do any reviewing or anything, but from just working off of memory, that one, if I remember correctly, Homer never says specifically what Helen looked like. So in part, the reference to the word fair was not necessarily about complexion, but more about how they use the wording for their description of beauty. So there's no, and then that population would not have been white in the way. So that's why I'm saying, when people are saying, if you're mad at Lupita being cast as Helen, you should be way more mad at Matt Damon being cast as Odysseus, or whatever his name was. Because that's not what Greeks look like, and the Greeks that would have been not only invading but commingling with the African populations of that region, that's not what they look like. So all of this is playing out in the context of white Eurocentric colonizing media. Yeah. But so anyway,
no.
I think that was it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, thank you for saying that, because that's I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. Like, I'm not trying to say or make any kind of claims that there aren't Black people in that region, or to even target her casting over like the casting of like Tom Holland or Matt Damon or something like that. The truth is that like that is a more authentic look to the region. My point
and
is,
it is true. Sorry to interrupt again. That Lupita is East African, raised
so she's a lot
Central
closer
America,
proximity, but it's there, like, there is this kind of like white conception of the region is a colonial gaze, or it's a colonial installment, and I think my thing that I'm trying to say is not that historically it's like an inaccurate thing. What I'm trying to say is that the casting is deliberately selected to appeal to an American audience. It's not, and those are two different things. It's not like the goal is not like, if we want to talk about historical accuracy, of course, like we don't know like really what she looked like. It's more likely she looked like Lupita than she looks like, I don't know, some blonde-haired, blue-eyed, like American version that we've seen.
Well, because I remember a lot of African historians that I was, introduced to early on would make the point that Homer also, in writing about that region, like Dr. Clark used to talk John Henrik Clark talked all the time about, look, we know that when Homer was talking about, giant bugs and, whatever else, that he was making stuff up. But when he compared Ethiopians to Egyptians in terms of their dark skin and how they look, that he was probably telling the truth, because they make the point that this is why when you point to quote unquote ancient Egyptians as looking more fair skinned and the stereotypical whatever than they actually were, that's in part what the people use, historians have used Homer's points to point that out. So in other words, they could have cast an entirely brown to dark skin cast and then had Matt Damon's character played by somebody more fair skinned and really messed everybody up. But and then I heard, by the way, that Lupita's only in the movie for like 5 minutes, by the way. Like, she's not even in it.
But I think if she's the character of Helen, right? Like, Helen was more of like a prize that it was more like, she's not, Helen was my, like, again, like I haven't seen the film, and it's been an age since I've read the Odyssey and stuff, but like, but my understanding was that Helen was just this objectified, like, woman of beauty that like started the war or something. That was what they were fighting. Not that she didn't start the war, but that they were fighting over her. But to what you were saying, I mean, when you look at the history of the area and the Carthaginians and the Phoenicians, and this was like people, the entirety of the Mediterranean was able to travel easily because of like boats and ships and like all of that region. So like, it's like, to me, at least, like, again, if we're going to be historically accurate, it is more likely that a lot of people would have this kind of North African, Southern West Asian look to them, if we're going to be historically accurate. But I think, you know, again, like all of these films, they're casting, like, I think it's really interesting that it's a big like Marvel cast, like it's obviously from, you know, the same acting agency, and like these are the things that I'm looking at, like, and I think and that it, I think, you know, I don't know, like maybe I'm not being fair because I'm not an American, and I'm not trying to erase or disqualify any kind of representation. I just think that we need to be conscious, like instead of like isolating things to getting upset at this actress or centering, like, I mean, it's not, you know, it's like, it's not really about, or that like, you know, or that these white people are centering her and focusing on her, these white supremacists, and then we are focusing on their focus on her. I personally think what we need to be looking at is, why is there constantly an American hegemonic lens being projected on like all these stories, that the casting is always like through an American construction, like of what is like what the US construct, what the US colony is. I mean, it's there. I mean, there's so much in the U.S. colony, like it's so many things. But in terms of like the liberal mainstream, like how they are presenting diversity is what is being presented in these films. And I think that's the question we have to ask: is how are they selecting these kind of things, and how are they like just choosing to represent people, choosing to place people in these stories, and what. Like, you know, and to, you know, I know we talked about this a bit, like in Andor, but just even psychologically, sorry, because my brain is a bit everywhere because we kind of went through like a few references today, but even like when you look at Sinners, like you have like, I don't know how people feel, but in general, I think the takeaway is that the main female character in that movie was the white passing character, even though there were other prominent female characters in that film, but for some reason she stands out the most. And she stands out the most, if you look at the devices used in the film, she's offered the biggest range of emotions. She has a backstory, but so does the other love interest of the twins' other love interest, that had the woman that had his child, Smoke's child or something. You have other like powerful women in this story, but they don't have the emotional range of like laughing, crying, interpersonal relationships.
Well, there are some who would disagree with that. Like a lot of the defense of the film is around the particularly the scene with I'm forgetting all the names and which is which, but one of the twins has the relationship with
names don't matter.
Well, I'm also forgetting her real life name, and the actress who plays the dark skinned, heavier set woman. Mm-hmm. Like the defense of the film is that she is given in that relationship, in the scene that they have, the very loving scene that she has with Smoke or Stack or whichever one. That this is that. My point isn't that you're wrong. I'm just saying that the defenders of the film will say that this is her being given her emotional arc and showing the importance. And I've even seen think pieces written about the importance of it being dark-skinned characters having this loving relationship being depicted on film, et cetera, and so forth. But they leave out, and I think, and I've even left out till you just now when you brought it up, that it's the white passing woman who is the prize at the end of the film. Like at the end of the film, that's who walks off with one of the twins into forever
him, basically, right? Like he was refusing her, and then she was able to take control of him and own him at the end, and stuff too. And but it's also, it's not just that they kill off the other actress. It's like, I mean, I could be wrong, but like when I've seen the media conversations and everything, you know, the white passing actress always gets a bit more like media attention and seems to be the one that comes forward in a lot of conversations. And she is a more noticeable character, but it's not because of I'm not talking about the emotional arcs. I'm talking about the emotional range. I'm talking about the amount of interpersonal reactions, even small things where people constantly respond to her and like as if she has a history with them and everything. Even though the other woman had a backstory, this woman was offered more interpersonal time. She was offered a greater emotional range, like laughing, crying, getting angry, getting scared, getting like a huge emotional range. She had a story arc. They all had a story arc, but I think, you know, this is the kind of, like, when I look at casting, I'm not just looking at that somebody got a role in the film. I'm looking at what mechanism were they inserted into when we craft these stories. And this is kind of like when I was talking to you about Andor, and there were the two characters that that when he was on his mission, there was like the one that represented him, his life as a thief, and then there was Nemec that wrote the manifesto, and he killed the thief guy. But the fact that those two characters were white and they were positioned as the reflections of Andor, and there was not one black character in the film that was positioned to be one of the main protagonists' sort of offspring, if we were to look at the chart, like if we were to lay out the blueprint of it. And when those have psychological affects that draw more humanity to those characters than other characters, so then for me, what I'm looking at when people start talking about racial casting is where are they positioning which actors? And so I'm not arguing, you know, again, like this is where I find this conversation very difficult. And I know maybe I come off as offensive to some people or something when I'm having it, because I'm not trying to disregard a racial experience or racialized people. I'm just trying to point out that when we are constructing this, there is a psychological affect to how these characters are positioned as devices in the film. And this, so that is how the casting conversation needs to be centered, in my opinion. And so the rest to me is just co-optation efforts that it's like throwing a bone to the audience to say, like, if we dog whistle this here and there, people will feel seen. But then we've prioritized that the ones that are going to shape and have the most psychological effects on people are not those characters. So subconsciously, it's reinforcing those politics without you recognizing it. And that's the part. Sorry, I don't know if my brain is everywhere today. I don't know if I'm making sense, but even to come back to the Odyssey thing, you know, again, we can talk about what is I'm not there to talk about who was racially Helen of Troy and how did the people look in that time? That is a real conversation that, you know, we've had a lot of.
Well, but I think it's a bookend to the point that you're making. If we don't have a conversation about what they actually would have looked like, then it's harder to make the point more clearly that there is a particular Western, U.S. focused, biased decision in terms of who gets cast and what. I think it makes it even more completely, but at least as I understand the point you're making, I mean, it again, it bookends the argument. It supplements the argument. If you understand what those people would have more likely been looking like. And there's another piece to that history that also gets erased when they do these Odyssey things, is that not only were the Greeks invading and the Persians and the Phoenicians all invading in African civilization and a very black and diverse whatever, blah, 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 or that they were bringing the diversity, if anything. Or Africa was already diverse. I mean, that's the other part of it. The continent is itself diverse before you even get to anything else. And then it was itself conquering, Egypt was itself an African empire of sorts in its expansiveness over that region. So it's like, but my point though is that what is also left out of all of that is the point now that I've just lost, that I forgot, that I've just lost my point, that it's not just, it's that the ideas that were emanating from these regions that are often given credit to the West and to Europe were ideas that were so inviting to the conquerors that many of them wanted to adopt the very culture and ideas of the people they were conquering. I mean, I think it's, the point of Alexander, wanting to be buried in Egypt, like it's like and adorning himself but I don't know if Odyssey deals with this, but like that's the part that gets left out, even when regular, white folks just have these conversations about these histories.
It does, because even like when we look at, again, I'm not a historian, so please like correct me if somebody actually knows the history, but my understanding too is that even like the whole Ptolemy dynasty and Cleopatra, these were like north of the Mediterranean. These were Macedonian conquerors that came to Egypt. And so this whole look of Cleopatra being an Egyptian, she was not an Egyptian. She didn't look like an Egyptian. None of the people from Egypt looked like this, Macedonian dynasty people that were conquering and ruling, over Egypt at that time. So like even,
they get there late. The Ptolemies and all them are late. They're after Africa, like they're very, very late.
They weren't from the region. They weren't.
But they didn't look like Matt Damon either.
Right, yeah.
And they didn't look like They didn't look like Liz Taylor either.
I mean, that is the ridiculous. Like that to me, the Matt Damon, like that's the part of this whole thing that is like, I mean, I know that's what you've been saying all along. Like the most ridiculous thing is having someone like Matt Damon and Tom Holland being characters in this is like, it's just cringy. Like I mean, I have no intention to see this film, but when I saw like a poster, like, I saw some trailers or whatever, and I was just like, what are they even doing there? Like these, like they're not.
And in fact, I think if I was to give him enough, if I was to think he deserved the credit, I would say that Christopher Nolan cast Lupita just to troll audiences with the fact that he was not going to accurately depict the actual look of the people who are going to be the majority focus of the film. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw a relatively, potentially, or an arguably inaccurate depiction of this Helen of Troy just to generate this level of controversy for a character who, again, as I've read, is not even in the film for long at all.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
I think more, but it like, and it like, that's the thing, because it is banking on an American audience. So most people are not familiar with the region. Most people have not visited the region and seen like if you even just go to North Africa, you're going to see all the layers of history of different civilizations that have been there, and like how people like how communities are in the region, how like the diversity in that region. They're banking on an audience that is going to sort of debate this from the American racial perspective. And my point is like, she could be like exactly how. Like it's very possible. Like we don't know. She could be exactly how Helen of Troy looked. But my thing is that that role is being cast as somebody that, again, like 5 minutes in the film and is there as like the character device is an objectified device. And I again, like I haven't seen One Battle After Another, but that film makes me think of other films that I've seen, like what was that? It was a horrible film, Blood Diamond.
Oh my God!
Like and
now you're bringing back past trauma.
Yeah, I know that one's just like horrific. Sorry. And then there's also, what is that one? Children of Men. And there's always this idea of
I don't know.
This veteran-y white guy that is there to protect this Black woman who is the promise of a future in a better world. And to me, that's like a trope that is constantly like reused when, like, you know, again, I think it's used for pacification. It's sort of used as a sort of a flag or like a dog whistle to be like, you know, yes, this is the reality of the world, but there is a promise. There's a promise in this empire for something more. And I feel like we see these kind of tropes repeated a lot. And again, I can't, like, I'd have to see One Battle After Another to confirm that. But to me, it just seems like I'm imagining this white veteran guy protecting the daughter, that in the end, it's sort of ending with this promise that she, like, there is a future for her or something like that. And I feel like we just, you know, Blood Diamond did the same thing and Children of Men did the same thing. And so but again, like I can't give a solid analysis on that. But I think, you know, I just like I think we have to, when we're talking about casting, I think we can't be just having the conversation about like who. Well, I guess that's where I'm jumping around, because I'm coming from the perspective where, like, I look at these films like a blueprint. I'm not looking at them as like.
No, I think that's right, and that's why that's why the little excerpt I played from that video piqued my interest beyond just the routine watching of those kinds of videos, which I do often for fun. That there's an acknowledgement, and I'm admitting like the pettiness of it, that that somebody that seemed, as I'm projecting and you know, maybe misinterpreting. But someone who seemed to be resistant to my attempt to explain to him that there's a conservative underpinning ideologically to the material you're promoting unwittingly in terms of those reverse hashtags, is coming back here acknowledging in his own video that the ideological underpinning and foundation of even Spider-Man comes from Homer, the Odyssey, Greek mythology, Western imperial, approaches and worldviews. And he's just saying it uncritically because as a fan of Spider-Man. So he's like, I like Spider-Man. So if I say, you know, and he's saying, and I love the Odyssey. And he's saying, you know, and he's on the one hand rightfully defending Lupita's involvement, but on the wrong hand, not acknowledging that there's a counterinsurgent liberal function in that he's again acknowledging without acknowledging it. That's what I thought when I heard him say that. I almost jumped out of my chair. I was like, oh shit, you just said it.
I mean, for me, that's sort of the starting point, though, that we like there's so many layers to like what we can interrogate in these films. But I do feel like the starting point is to be like, why are we telling these stories in the first place? Like, why are we like rehashing these specific Western imperial stories before we're talking about like how we're going to diversify the casting or who gets to play what role? It's like, why are we starting with these stories? Why is it okay that we're starting with these stories? And
message.
That's the part that like I'm like this presumed point of departure, like it's just acceptable that we're telling the story of the Odyssey again, and then we're getting upset about the racialized dynamics and the politics around that, which I'm not saying isn't real, but why are we starting with that story in the first place? Like, and I think, you know, this is like, none of these stories are coming from a place of innocence, including Sinners. Like to me, like Kugler, I mentioned this in the chat at one point, but like Kugler's mandate is to make sure that the Second Seminole War does not happen again. This is why he puts misinformed Indigenous representation in his films. He's dog whistling, and he is employed for like a specific mandate. And this is what he does in his films. And like, none of these are starting from a place of innocence. And that's where we, like, before we start talking about the actors and all of this stuff, like, we should be talking about, like, why is it this story that's being told? Why is this being presented to us? And instead, the point of departure is that it's a neutral, accepted thing that story is being put out there, and then we're going into the actors and the actresses and like these kind of conversations. But I just think we need to go one level deeper to start first, and then I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's kind of where I feel like we need to start. I don't know if Renee's there or not. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna see if I can look at the chat, because I don't usually have the chat open since I think I'm alone here. Are there questions that I...
Sorry. So
okay.
I don't know, Renee. We're not hearing Renee. I know that there was. I just want to confirm that she was struggling to connect. And Dre is back. I do just want to say real quick. I was a little bit pissed that you dropped the bars as soon as I had to run off screen. Like, that is
sorry, Jared.
First of all, Kugler, your point about Kugler involving Indigenous folks with the mandate unspoken as it is to prevent the next Seminole uprising is a bar. That's exactly right.
I mean, that should be the starting point of Kugler analysis. It should always, his film should start with that.
That's what, so that's what has consistently gotten me into all these hostilities, because that is the starting point for me, that all of this is as a construct to suppress and prevent. In fact, that's where I'm struggling on our project with the graphic novel, trying to figure out how best to because that's the point. The whole what I did not do appropriately in the Buying Power book, I do want to correct in our graphic novel project, which is to say that the only purpose of the Buying Power analysis and the Black capitalist mythology is to stop the next Seminole uprising. That's ultimately all that's to stop the next African in the next rebellion.
that's like these.
And again, I'll be right back. But go ahead. You and Trey, go ahead. I didn't want to leave you at the. I'll be right.
That's okay. Like, these are not cultural products.
Why can't I hear Sam now? God damn.
Oh, hey, Trey. These aren't cultural products. What the fuck is going on? These are like, these are co-optation.
Maybe I can't leave yet. Sorry. I don't know what's going on. I hear Samantha perfectly, and I hear Dre perfectly. Do you hear me, Dre?
Yeah, I hear you.
But you don't hear me. That's like what happened. I have to apologize live, Jared, because I was talking over you. I can read lips, but... And I didn't hear. I think it's
all good. No apologies necessary. I understand these things happen, and I'm not... Renee, you are now back. I don't know if we're going to be able to hear you. And what's really kind of funny is I don't mean to overshare, but the other kind of humor is on my end is my bladder is screaming and I'm trying to run out. But I didn't want to leave everybody because I don't know who can hear and do what. But I'm gonna. I'll be back.
Can you hear me, Dre?
I think if Sam leaves and comes back, then we'll be able to hear her. Because that's what happened.
I hear Samantha perfectly.
That's why. Okay, I'm gonna leave and come back and see what the fuck happens. Hold on, give me 1 second.
But the same thing happened to me.
Give me 1 second before you piss yourself.
Samantha, we hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me, Jay? Oh, he's coming back. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going, sorry, chat, because I don't usually look at the chat. But Buka, I'm just seeing you say something about reproducing hegemony, and I don't know. I know that this is, I'll say it here because I kind of brought it up when I did Roger Rabbit with the other group. I feel very weird and exposed being alone in this right now. But I do think that I think that there is a problem in a population being able to be coerced so easily through this medium. And I don't think that the solution is to use those tools to coerce people in a different way. I think that we need to divest a little bit from it. That's, sorry, I don't know if that's a helpful thing or not, but I guess just as somebody that I know what we're doing, and it's very deliberate. It's based on a lot of psychological research, and I don't it's very powerful. It's like you put people into a dark room for a certain time span with music, with certain editing, and so unless everybody is able to analyze in that kind of, people are analyzing superficial things, and that's why I feel bad, because sometimes I probably come across as very dismissive of people's concerns or lived realities, and I don't mean to be, but those are sort of icing details. Those are things as if you paint a can of Coke or something, a soft drink, with different images, it's still Coke inside, and there's still a chemical mixture that's happening inside that has chemical reactions in your body with the sugar and everything when you drink it, regardless of whose face or whose picture we put on the can. And people are getting into conversations about how we decorate the can, and I'm trying to talk about what we're putting in the can that you are then putting into your body. And I think unless people are starting to analyze it from that sort of constructed perspective, I do feel concerned about how it's, to me, this conversation is kind of like if you inject somebody with a drug like heroin or something, and you're like, how do we keep taking heroin but we fight back? It's well, you stop taking heroin. You don't take you can't keep taking heroin and say, oh, but if I'm informed about this, or maybe if I wear these clothes, or if I don't listen to this music while I'm taking heroin, then we can fight back. There's certain things that that have an affect, and unfortunately, I didn't really get to go into this too much, but things came up when we were talking about the Roger Rabbit thing, just with animation techniques and stuff that we use when I was on Millennials. There are ways that we are programming you to feel empathy in certain ways, and distaste or emotionally disconnect or dehumanize things in other ways that are things that you're not analyzing, because they're not the things in the script, they're not the things in the casting. They are things that are unless you learn them, maybe you're not I don't know, maybe everyone is seeing them and I'm just not aware that everybody is informed about the work that we do. But when I listen to the conversations, I don't hear people looking at those things, and those are actually the things that you are internalizing, and we know that you are, because we are taught that and we are shown evidence of it when we're learning it. So I think that and I think just on that tangent, you know, I've again, like I've this is terrible. Like sorry, I'm like, this is terrible. I'm just gonna have to confess the way that we are in the industry, and it doesn't paint a nice picture per se, but like, you know, for us in the industry, we don't really care if everyone's talking about this stuff. We don't care about social media things. We don't care. Like, I didn't know, like, I'm so grateful that I found this community of people. But when I was like immersed in the industry, we don't know about any of this, and we don't care because it has no impact on what we're going to do or like what people are saying in the public discourse. Like, it's not a reality for how we're making these films. And I think, you know, and so even to be protecting these films and to be protecting these directors and these actors and these performers that are not out there thinking about what people's lived experiences are. They're not out there, you know, and that was something that like when, oh, sorry, I'm just going on such a big rant, but even like with the boosters things, I'm just going to try to bring in all the films that have like come up right now. But even with the boosters thing, like, you know, I wrote this in the chat when you guys were having the conversation about it, but like, why are we defending this guy that makes this film exacerbating or owning a trope when in the same time frame that we were having these conversations about boosters, a woman's child got shot in her arms, 1-year-old child got shot in her arms, and the police claimed that they had the right to do that because of shoplifting. And I see this as a through line. Like, and so what, like for me, I'm not interested in defending somebody like Boots. I'm interested in stopping the harm that is happening to people. And these films are related to it. And I feel like there is an addiction. There's like, I think that is what we need to think about. And I really don't say that lightly. Like I like people, like, you know, like everyone here, like you, like a lot of people have enjoyed these as entertainment their whole lives. Like, I made my career of this, and I've given up my career of this. And like, so I'm not saying this like I'm just criticizing from a space of like, well, I just watch movies and I have an opinion. I just think we need to be aware of what this apparatus is. And I think we need to question, what are we defending when we're protecting it? Like, really, I think that needs to be asked. Like, what are we protecting? What need are we protecting for these films? Like, that's the part that I feel like has been very deeply internalized. And I do think that has to also, that's got to be a question that is brought up when we're having film analysis. I'm done now. Everyone's back. That's my little monologue rant.
Wait, can you hear me this time now? Am I back?
Yes, now I can
hear you. So brutal. So first of all, don't watch one battle after another. I think you've survived enough just listening to everyone else talk about it. There's no need for you to put yourself through that. Just spare yourself the aggravation. And two, what you were just talking about, I think, is part of like this collective conversation that we keep having whenever these movies come out. People say, oh, we got to watch this, and we got to see this movie, or you got to talk about this. And I really am wondering if in some ways there's a disservice to doing this, because we're again like talking about these things that are all created within this box, which the box is literally there to oppress us. And so as we're talking of, just like you said, like as we're talking about who are the actresses and who is this and who is that, and no one's really, not you, no one, I mean, most people are not really thinking about, well, the reason that the movie is made like this is because you have these US companies that are built off oppression, that are seeking solely to capitalize off of the movie ticket that they're selling. They don't care about the historical reference. They don't care about any accuracy. They care about selling the ticket. And if they can create enough controversy around the movie or create enough talk around the movie that people decide to go see it, so that, again, they can make money off of selling the ticket. So you end up always in this in this control, basically like this controlled environment where we're being sold a thing that we're being sold simply because they need to continue to make money. You know, making these movies, it's to, you know, people go see movies. It's like, you know, it's like a treat, right? Like, it's like, oh, I'm going to go see a movie. I'm going to go get some popcorn and hang out and do whatever with my friend. Like, this is not something that, like, if you don't have money, you're not going to the movies, right? Like, because the little bit of money that you get, you're likely not spending $20 on a movie ticket and then another $30 inside so that you can eat. So this whole thing, I don't know. I'm really struggling with this whole idea of how we utilize these systems that are really built just to continue to keep oppressing us. And I just don't really know. I don't know how best to address this, but I think sometimes, Sam, because I hear you sometimes apologizing because whoever in the chat said whatever thing they said. And I think it's because people are still not seeing things from that highest level of understanding, that all of these things are being done just to distract you from whatever's actually happening, to give you these false stories about, like, who cares about the Odyssey movie? Like, like, why? And we're telling the story of Troy again? Like, didn't Troy just come out? Like, how old is the Troy with Brad Pitt with the long blonde hair? Like, it hasn't been that long since they did the Troy movie. So, you know, all of this, and it's all to create this hype and this conversation. Oh, we got to go see the movie. You got to go see the movie. And it's all in service of capitalism. And so I just don't, you know, I'm also struggling. I agree.
I mean, I see it like,
but I actually, and I don't know if this is a point of disagreement or not, but I actually think that maybe it is, and but I think what we're doing is extremely important. So because even to the point, you know, even people who can't afford the high end ticket for these, you know, expensive media, I think they will end up seeing the films one way or another. And I think that what we're doing here, so the note I wrote here is that people, just to keep I didn't forget, poor people, everybody will see these films, and our analysis of them is akin to our criticism of mainstream politics. The idea being that the ideas in these dominant spaces will reverberate beyond any individual viewing. So for instance, when I'm critical, or we're critical of the reverse hashtags, it's not always just because I expect that every student, for instance, that shows up in my classroom will have heard the actual spokespeople supporting those hashtags, but they will have encountered the politics embedded in those hashtags as they reverberate. Same thing with these films, whether they see the film directly or not, the politics embedded in them will reverberate and end up on platforms rebranded perhaps as something black and radical, as will the critiques of them. So then lastly, I think that because that was why I played that thing from that clip from the Birdman video, that he's the reason we keep getting these films is because Western Empire has to keep re-promoting in any number of ways its mythologies, its myth of origin. So even when I had never seen it. I just saw the new Gladiator film the other day, belatedly, and happened to catch a scene where they have Denzel on screen. Actually, that's another. There was something else he did, but there's a part. I think it's Denzel on screen where they're going into Rome and they show you the Romulus and Remus and Romulus, whatever statue of them feeding off of the wolf, the breast of the wolf, which is part of the foundational mythology of and they're recounting that, and I'm saying this is why they do this stuff, because they're saying here's the mythological origin of our always ever improving Western civilization. So even when it comes back as a Spider-Man film, or as an X-Men film, or in this bullshit about the Odyssey, which is itself bullshit from Homer, who is itself maybe a bullshit character figure, him or themselves, we don't even know. That's why they do it. So when we do our critique, I do think there is value in it, because even if people don't see the film, they're going to be confronted with these ideas, and having some analysis of it is, I think, valuable. All right.
It's because it's all soft power shit. So like when you figure that, you know, when Tume talking about first cinema, second cinema, and third cinema, when you look at something like that Odyssey bullshit, or One Battle After Another, or just the plethora of cop films that aren't starring white people as cops, but they're starring everybody else of color as cops, it's soft power shit, because it's literally what they do as far as capturing the hearts and minds. And they got that from Gerald Templar, who was a British general during the Malayan emergency. That was a little bit after World War II, and like right nearing the end of the Korean War. But he put out the idea of taking over the hearts and minds of the Malayan people. The Malayan people, the Communist Party, they were fighting against them, and they were like, the British were like, fuck, this is a colony of ours. The communists are really close to the people. How do we get these people without having to like unalive everybody? Okay, we get the hearts and minds. We shoot them without using a gun. So then from there, they were able to use that to win the first Malayan emergency, but then they ended up having another one in like, I think like the 60s until like the 80s in like 1980. But from there, the French took that idea of taking over the hearts and minds. That's why the French imperial powers love the movie Battle of Algiers. That's why the U.S. government loves the movie Battle of Algiers. They use it at West Point. They use the movie Battle of Algiers as a way to study guerrilla tactics as a way to study guerrilla tactics. They even watched it the same year that the U.S. invaded Iraq. They watched it to study guerrilla tactics, to figure out how to attack people. To figure out how to also capture the hearts and minds. Because one of the most prominent people within the Algerian revolution, I forget his name off the top of my head, but his thing was to get a hold of the people by throwing the revolution in the streets. So the imperial powers took that idea, like, oh, okay, it's easier for us to get you guys by putting, you know, these silly ass films in your face, these silly ass cartoons in your face. Because if we directly tell you shut up and obey, you gonna have a problem with that. It's just like the movie fucking They Live. So if we directly tell you that, you'll have an issue. But if we just showing you movies, cartoons, video games, sports and shit, we can supplant that into your head and have you running with it. Where like if somebody attacks, say, your favorite movie, you'd be like, well, I just like it because I just wanna watch something. Like, leave me alone. I just want to watch this. Like, I just want to relax. Like, I just want to turn my brain off. The thing is, the people that are controlling your life don't turn their brains off. They want you to turn your brain off. That's the point. So they want you to watch the bullshit so that way you can argue about things that don't matter when they do matter. So for instance, like the Homer thing, like figuring out like why are they coloring, you know, people who could be dark brown, olive skin and making them fucking white people from Boston. What's going on with that? That's because they need to, again, plant those thoughts into your head without having to shoot you. But yeah.
I just lost my whole. I had a thought in my head, but then I wanted Dre to talk, and now I can't even remember what it was. Oh, wait, it was Jared. Because Jared said, and you're right, Jared, there is work to be done because people are going to watch the movies. I agree. And I think that's where I'm trying to navigate, like, is there a way to do this work where we also convince people that we have to turn our back on this whole cinematic project?
Yeah, only us. We watch. That's why we started the review crew. We all watched everything, organize our thoughts, and then we will tell everybody why. No, but all jokes aside, that's why I was saying before, like we can't watch these things without some pre-existing political. Again, that's why I was calling the Vernon philosophy an intellectual boycott. It's not because I'm saying I know we're going to end up seeing a lot of this or being confronted with a lot of it. So let's just have some prior preparation, and then we should see them as collectives, organized with the purpose of delivering a certain message about them and an analysis. That is what I do think. I do think it is. There is some value in that. Yeah. But that said, I'm also down with not seeing them at all, and I'm also on record, even in print, as saying, you know, boycotting. I mean, not boycotting, but bootlegging is a revolutionary activity.
I bootleg all the time.
Yeah. So I'm not saying get your ticket and go to the local theater. I'm saying, but that's also in part because I'm also talking to the people that I grew up as part of, who get all the bootleg DVDs and mixtapes, and we think we're doing something radical because we're not going to the theater, but we're still getting the same bullshit content, and we're not necessarily reviewing it with some sort of actual analysis. So that's why I'm saying even the people we know aren't going to be, you know, spending the $50 per person with the popcorn and everything, getting the ticket at the theater. They're going to see it, or they're going to maybe they're going to read the comic it's based off of, or they're going to read the novel it's based off of. I was shocked, even as a high school teacher, at how many books my students were reading, but they were these popular Black targeted, ridiculous, absurd novels that were silly and had no politics, but students were reading them all over the place. And then some of them get turned into some other popular form. So all that to say, I think that analyses like this provide a service. And when we can get Samantha to suffer through something and break it down for us, it is some value. If we say shut it down and don't see none of it, I'm good with that too.
I just wanted to say, to your point about like shutting it down and not, you know, seeing it, again, like back to like the Malayan emergency, like the idea of capturing the hearts and minds. These kind of things are very important to the conversation and to like helping people see through the bullshit, because nothing just is. You're not just watching a show ever, especially here. Again, the U.S. government uses the Battle of Algiers as a way to study guerrilla warfare. But some people might watch the movie as, oh yeah, that's just a cool film. They watch it to study guerrilla warfare. Will Smith, even though like Oliver North is an odd person, but sometimes he's on the nose about certain shit. Oliver North made a documentary about like the military-industrial complex tied into the film industry. And he explained and showed the through line of like a couple of actors, but one that really caught me off guard was Will Smith. So Will Smith, we remember he was, well, he's still alive, but like he's doing this thing, early 90s, getting in films. I think he was in that Bag of Ants or whatever the fuck that golf movie was. Obviously Fresh Prince and all that. Then he got the Independence Day role. If you look at the top billing of that movie, what's his name? The dude from the Jurassic Park movie was
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum, exactly. He was top billing, right? The movie was really about him. Will Smith was given a more prominent role because the U.S. government was like, hey, you got this, we giving you military shit like planes and all that and letting you act like you're blowing up certain like U.S. military bases. So we need Will Smith to be more prominent. So basically, I say all that to say that Will Smith's career is because of the U.S. government in that sense, because Independence Day is one of his biggest movies of all time, as far as his career goes. You got people like that. You got what's his name, Ben Affleck, when he did with Fargo, whatever that shit was, that terrible movie. But his girl at the time, what, Jennifer Gardner?
Argo.
Yeah, she was doing
where he played a Latino.
Yeah. So Jennifer Gardner was actually doing commercials for the CIA.
Why did they get mad about that? How come nobody was all bent out of shape about that?
Jennifer Gardner was doing commercials for the CIA. Like you can look them up on YouTube. Like there's press that she was doing for them when she was doing that one character on Fox. I forget the name. But I say all that to say that nothing just is. Ultimately, they just want you to have a comfortable demise. So they want you to be cool with watching reality television or cartoon or like Paw Patrol or any of this other book or all of these damn superhero movies that keep pushing military shit. Like Michael Bay is basically in the army. Like they want all of that they want all of that to subconsciously subdue you, so that way you don't want to do anything but just find a way to relax, because so much is happening that you need to relax.
Do you know what I just learned? Because I like the film Good Will Hunting, but I just learned that the original script that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon had written about that, it was much more about. So there's a scene in the film where they lean into this point where Will might get hired by the state because of his mathematic genius or whatever, to become some intelligence agency thing, and they reject that and go off, and it becomes the romance story that it becomes. But originally that script apparently was the story. And the reason it's called Good Will Hunting is because the original script was his rejection of the intelligence community starts them hunting him to bring him into the intelligence world, or to assassinate him, or whatever they were going to do. And then Rob Reiner apparently saw the script and said, "Nah, turn it into, focus on turn it into what it now became." And then they became this.
I mean, they gave him Enemy of the State.
Well, Will Smith had been an enemy of the state for sure. Which we were just reminded was my wife, that was the film my wife and I saw on our first date. And when we came out of the theater into an empty parking lot, someone was breaking into my car. So it was like it's a weird film to see, to then walk out and see people breaking into your car. It's like, wait a minute. It's like, what the? Anyway.
So
Renee, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Real quick before I forget. So the other thing, so in the chat, people are like laughing at me because the last Troy movie was 2004. I realized that, like, for some reason, people think that was like, 100 years ago. You can watch that movie whenever you want. My point is, you don't need Odyssey. like Troy with Brad Pitt is not on like 16 millimeter and in somebody's closet where nobody can watch it because it's so old that no one has access to it. That's my point. Like, it's not like I'll be 50
It's
soon.
not the only one either, by the way.
Right. Like, like Troy, I was an adult when Troy came out, right? Like, that my point really is, like, you didn't need to do an Odyssey, right? And there's been other movies in between then, because, I mean, realistically...
I just did a quick search, by the way. I don't know if this is... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just did, films about Greek mythology, just to see. You got all these Clash of the Titans, the 300s, the Immortals, the Percy Jackson series, even Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I know that's older, but that sort of the point that I was getting at. Like, these films, there's so many films that bury this stuff in it. So I don't know the exact timeline, but you got Hercules, you got another Odyssey, another Clash of the Titans, the Immortal. So there's been a whole bunch of these films. So whether it's going all the way back to Troy or not, but I think even if it does, your point is still correct. It's not that long ago, and these things reverberate and echo. So
right.
Yeah.
And so people should remember when these new versions of these same stories come out again and they're retold, and it's someone else playing the role, and they make sure that they slide a black person in so they can say, oh, look, we put in some color in the movie. Like, it's all part of the game. They're still playing in our face. And so you'll just have to remember that that's part of the game, right? It is to intentionally give you something, to give you those was it Easter eggs? Is that what we call what they call them when they start talking about, oh, you have to look for the Easter eggs. You have to look for the little things that they hide in the movie that prove that it's revolutionary. No, you don't. Like, you have to recognize that they want you to think that that's what they're doing so that more people go buy a ticket and see the movie. It has nothing to do with teaching anybody anything. It's not about any historical facts. It's not about anything realistic. And the reason it's never going to be about that is because they don't want you to know that stuff. They have no interest in giving you real stories. They have no interest in giving you historical facts. They have no interest in you learning. They have no interest in your revolutionary spirit. Like, they don't care about any of that. They just want you to go buy a ticket and then go get your latte after. That's it. That's all they care about.
Although, again, I shout out to Michael Parenti. I kind of think of it that you're right, but in a slightly different way. That I think Michael Parenti was right, that when he says that the only thing they care about us is what we think, and that in this sense that it's not just to get us to buy a ticket and get the soda. It is to buy a ticket and get the soda in the context of accepting their version of the world, their version of history. And then, yes, if you can be convinced that 5 minutes of Lupita on screen in as Helen of Troy is somehow a Black revolutionary inclusive, you know,
or
then
gospel singers in Hercules.
Yeah, exactly. Then you get then it's like one more added benefit. Because actually I think that's even more important to them than the ticket sales is at the end of the day is that messaging piece. But yeah, sorry, because I know, go ahead. I'll let everybody.
No, just real quick, though, Sam, don't forget what you're about to say. Because what you just said about wanting them, to think and also to get, but I think the whole point, like, even if it's you want to control what they're thinking, you're controlling what they're thinking because they go buy the ticket and they get their latte after. So I'm wondering now, like, is it just entwined? Like the way I always argue with people that you can't separate race and class because they're entwined. So I wonder, can you actually separate this whole attempt to control you because they want you to spend your money? Like, that's part of the point in controlling what you think. So now I'm like,
no, McLuhan would say both? But that's why McLuhan would say the medium is the message. And I've increasingly come to appreciate his argument, where I think I was wrong, that the fact that we're going to see the film, period, it doesn't matter what the messaging is an acceptance, is us accepting all that this societal structure is saying is valid. It is accepting the capitalist structure. It is a tacit agreement with the white supremacy. It is so even if you go in and get a movie made by Renee, Samantha, Dre, and Jared, featuring Asada and Malcolm, and like even if you go in and see a film in that even that film, the content becomes less, if not entirely irrelevant. You are already accepting the thing. So yeah, it's definitely entwined. Even if I got McLuhan wrong here, you're onto something at minimum. Go ahead, Dre. Sorry, or Sam, both of you. Go ahead.
I just want to say, like, all press is good press. So as long as they got something out there, that's what matters. Again, hearts and minds. Like the Malayan emergency is the greatest example of how media captures the people. The British knew what they needed to do to deal with Malaysia. They knew that the Communist Party had a strong hold on people. They knew that the Second Imperial War was over. And a lot of colonies are like, wait a minute, we can fuck y'all up. Oh, okay. So they knew they needed to do something. They couldn't just go in there, guns a-blazing, literally and figuratively. So they said we need to take over the hearts and minds.
Dre, your mic is colonizing your words.
Damn. You can't hear me?
It's real choppy.
Can you hear me?
And out of delay. Now you're out of sync. There's something's wrong.
God damn it.
That's so back to McLuhan's point. The medium is the message, and we're struggling here because of the medium. Samantha, did you want to say something when we see if we can get Dre?
No, I think I was just going to say before, like, I think the Disney Hercules is a perfect, like, the way that I'm seeing this, like, to come back to Odyssey, the way that I'm seeing this whole thing with the casting in this Odyssey film is the same way that I see Disney's Hercules, and that they had the muses. Like, it's the same thing. They're still telling the story of Hercules. They're still telling, like, Western imperial stories. They're just trying to throw in, like, I sort of think of them as dog whistling. Like, they're just trying to dog whistling to recruit basically people that would have rejected it. Like, putting in this kind of casting or doing these kind of things. This is like the Hind Rajab movie. Like, they put Jordanian Palestinian actors in it, just like actors, that's it. And then all of a sudden it's a Palestinian movie. Like, that's enough. Like, that, like, you know, like that's so it's, you know, to me, this is just dog whistling. This is co-opting, dog whistling, recruitment to get people to internalize ideologies in ways that my concern is that, you know, well, we do need a better form of media literacy. If people, I think unfortunate, like, I don't know, my view that I'm leaning more and more into is that, you know, especially like when we think of, you know, everything that Dre is saying and everything with counterinsurgency, they're not interested in co-opting these white supremacists that have anti-Black racism and are throwing a fit about this actress being cast as Helen. They don't need to co-opt them into the American project. They're interested in co-opting the further left that you are, the more that you are targeted, the more that they are going to dog whistle to you and try to co-opt you. And I see it, I don't know, I just see it working. I'm seeing these conversations and I'm seeing it like people, we're not talking about the right things to recognize what's being done. And I think coming back to, you know, like even the whole thing with the Odyssey, why do we need their approval to tell us who Helen of Troy should look at? Like, why are we arguing with a bunch of racists and, you know, American imperialists in Hollywood, which is just as much a part of the like, you know, like Hollywood doesn't need to work per se for the CIA or the FBI. Like we can all understand that while the FBI and the CIA and the Pentagon are separate institutions, they are all kind of working together. And let's just add Hollywood as an institution to that group. They collaborate. And so why are we having these conversations defending these films that require their approval, require our validation within their film? Like, I don't know. I just think the whole thing like that, like, I just think that
who is the we that you're talking about?
We?
Yeah, like who is the we that are defending?
I think
because so you're saying the conversations we're all having are participating in the error that you're seeing happen? Because I don't see that at all.
No, sorry.
Oh,
okay, yeah, let me clarify. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Because I jump in my head to things. No, I think the more like those of us that are anti-imperial, I think that we do have to, and maybe that's what we have to weigh out, is who do we want to continue talking to? Like, I remember, like, you had inspired me with something when I was feeling like a bit, you know, overwhelmed with certain things. I remember you saying, like, you were creating content for the people like you, like the people that were, like, you're not creating content necessarily to convert liberals or something. You're there to help support the people that are already doing the work. And so I guess that's what we have to, I don't know if that's, and maybe I'm misquoting you, but I think maybe that is part of like this whole question of divesting, or how do we devote our energy? Like, do we want to be doing the work to be convincing people about what's happening in these films, or do we want to do the work of building alternatives? Yeah, sorry. And my mind goes that way because I think, like, the other thing that maybe people don't realize if you haven't worked in this industry, but a lot of the people in the industry are not how I think people imagine artists to be. A lot of like I've done a considerable amount of like what I called artistic training, where I go to studios to like train artists and stuff. And like, I think that's something else, that the consuming of the overconsumption of this is colonizing our imagination, is presenting the realities that we perceive, the ways of interacting with each other, the ways that we identify with characters or people, or you know, these imaginaries of like, these are all also the imperial imaginaries that they're putting on us. And I say that because I used to, like, I mean, I still do in Europe a bit, but like, I've done a lot of teaching at colleges, at animation colleges, and sometimes like, you know, like just like different programs of people that want to go into the industry. And I've been guilty of this because I loved anime when I was a kid, but you would not believe, like, no matter where you go in the world, these kids are constantly just producing anime artwork. And I constantly have to go in and interrogate that, like what, like that, you know, they'll do this with character design when it doesn't necessarily mean that it was a good character design. It's just an anime drawing that they did. That doesn't mean that they thought about silhouettes or design principles or artistic, like just this kind of thing. But their imaginations are so centered around anime. And there is such a huge like fan culture online of reproducing anime or doing this and doing that and just constant reproduction of it. And this got me very curious. So I started looking into, you know, the whole like Hitler Youth film training programs that was targeted at teenagers and Japanese like collaborations with that. And so a lot of this storytelling also preys upon that age group and like identification and all of this kind of thing. My point is, though, is that no matter where I've gone in the world with these young students, I see it more and more that they can't disassociate themselves with it. And you look at this whole online network of people that are just creatively reproducing like little music videos from an anime film that they saw. And so when we are constantly exposing ourselves to this, like especially in that age group, like, you know, when you look at the Black Panthers and the stuff that they wrote when they were in their 20s, like we are co-opting our imaginations to think and invest our creative energies and ideas into just mimicking these imperial ideas. And a lot of the people like that I have taught, they're just people that wanted to work in animation. They didn't necessarily, like, I didn't used to even consider them artists. I've had to teach people like 3D animators that they never learn anything about art. They just learn the software. And so my whole point of this is that I personally think that we are all, like, as someone that works as an artist, I personally think that we are all artists. We all have the capacity to create and imagine, and a big part of what this industry does and what film does so effectively is it made us forget that. Like art should be coming from our histories, from our culture. We need to be putting out new ideas, new imaginaries, new things. And instead, we are constantly exposing ourselves to things that then shape our creativity. And that is another price of the ticket that we're paying. Like, even if you bootleg something and you're not paying for the movie theater ticket, like, I think that this also has to be considered. And the more that I reflect back, the more that I'm like, I think it was really good that my dad banned us from watching TV and movies, because I never was a cinephile. Like, I loved creating things, and I've worked in this industry, but I never had, like, to me, it was just a space to create. And that's probably also why I don't feel an identity crisis by walking away from it.
Only because I know we're about to wrap, and I do want to just jump in to say, but this is exactly my point, that even with you being cut off from it, you entered into a world and even ended up working in a world that produces it. So without anyone, which is what I would like to think that we're doing, and someone pointed out correctly that you were paraphrasing my paraphrasing of Glenn Ford's purpose in his work, is that we're providing an analysis for those who may be in a certain, either on the fence or in a certain already politicized space, who are being forced one way or another to confront this media and its argument. And then then we're offering a pathway out, is the way I'd like to think of it. And similar to the point, like when Renee, you know, as we started this show on the basis of her critique, as I understand, of the Democratic Party and its apparatus, we're performing a media analysis that I think is a parallel of that. It's not saying, we're not accepting the Democratic Party narrowing of our political imagination. We're recognizing their popular attempts to do that and trying to deconstruct to get us back to something more imaginative. So I know we all have a lot more to say on that, and we will continue to. So that's the beauty of these conversations. This is not an exhaustive end, but I will stop there and let all three of you take any last thoughts for today, and then we'll part ways for temporarily and see each other again soon. Thank you all very much. Samantha, Dre, Renee, are you able to?
I think Dre was trying to talk, but the mic is getting him again. It's cackling.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See?
All right, yeah, Dre. Sorry, yep. Dre, jump in the chat and say whatever you want to say, and we'll reconvene with you another time. And but yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Smith.
No, I just want to say, like, these are the conversations that I want to have. Like what you were saying. Like, this is the stuff that I really want to get into interrogating. Is like, what is, like, really weighing out, you know, all the things we need to consider, and then sort of calibrating around that, and like, that's what I need. Those are the conversations I need to have too. Like, I need to I appreciate them.
We're not done.
I know. So I appreciate it, because every time I walk away from these, trying to always, like, be mindful of how much of this is because we are just within a system, and we're trying to fight something that, like, we're all being boxed into believing is the only thing that exists, right? So we think about Laura's book and how and the blank card and all these conversations that we're trying to now have, which also goes to Sam saying, like, having that starting imagination point where it's not limited by all the things that you're already being taught and things you're already seeing, that you're being reminded have to be the thing because that's what's popular right now and that's what's selling right now. And so it's all, yeah, I'm deeply appreciative of being able to have these conversations, and I'm sorry that Dre couldn't finish whatever it was that he was trying to tell us.
He's back on his phone, but
I just wanted to say something real quick, because I don't know how many times I got fucking cut off because of this goddamn whatever the hell is going on.
Is it going to be real quick though?
Yeah,
is it for real quick?
Yeah, it's real quick. No, the point was, like I was saying, is, again, nothing just is, and to Sam's point, anything is art. So this idea that you are just taking in any kind of media and from any kind of medium, you need to be aware of yourself. I mean, that's like the positive end of postmodernism. And back to that Thomas Pynchon and One Battle After Another, he was into entropy, which right-wing people don't like because entropy is multiculturalism. So overall, just pay attention to what you're paying attention to, and don't just watch shit just to watch it.
All right. Listen, thanks everybody for struggling through your schedules and the hard work and the technology. This has been great. To the undefeated chat, salute to you as well. Word to Vernon, salute to the Vernon philosophy. and all these, so please, everybody, if you missed them, make sure you catch all the associated discussions that Samantha's been having, we've all been having. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon here at Black Liberation Media, and peace only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. And we will catch you next week with more
Saturday with Renee.
Black Liberation Media is a collective of Black and African organizers, journalists, academics, and media personalities serving Black and African masses seeking to further grow in their understanding of themselves, their histories, and the African world through entertainment and news. Please continue to like, subscribe, and donate to the channel so we can further serve you and liberate our people. You can also go to blkliberationmedia.org, get some merchandise, and also become a Patreon member and a member from the YouTube. Please do what you can, share, and show your love as we will show ours for you. Black Liberation Media.